In this video today, Whoopi Goldberg is now slamming Democrats for criticizing the Hunter Biden pardon.
He can pardon, if he wants to pardon Bozo the Clown, he can pardon Bozo the Clown.
Also, CNN can't answer this simple question.
Do you all think that Merrick Garland should be fired because of this corruption at the DOJ?
And New York City Mayor Eric Adams says he's willing to work with Trump.
And I would love to sit down with the board of czar.
So this is day 2 of The View defending Joe Biden pardoning his son Hunter. And this proves once again that they are not about the facts. They're actually about their feelings. Watch.
President Biden's full pardon to his son Hunter is being met with a strong reaction from the left side of the aisle, too. Take a look.
What other father in America has the power to pardon his son or daughter if they're convicted of a crime?
He didn't need to tell the American public, I will not do this. And he did. And when you made a promise, you got to keep it.
I can't say why my colleagues are acting the way that they are. I can say that the American people are tired of us bringing a butter knife to a real fight.
It's a gift to Donald Trump because he's going to come here and claim that he's just doing what Joe Biden did. And I think that is hurtful for the American people.
You know what I think is hurtful for the American people? I think what is hurtful is denying that if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander.
Yeah.
He is the president of the United States, and it is his right, and he doesn't have to explain to anybody. This is his right as president. He can pardon, if he wants to pardon Bozo the Clown, he can pardon Bozo the Clown. Yeah.
Okay, so before I even respond to what she had to say, let me address a question I continue to get in my comment section. Devori, why do you continue to show clips of The View? Why do you show clips of CNN and these other people who have no idea what they're talking about? Well, it just so happens that majority of the news has been pumped into the minds of half of America from people like her, from people like The View, from people that are on CNN. So yeah, I'm going to come out and I'm going to challenge it and I'm going to set the record straight. That's what I did during the election. Why? Because most people were not educated. They were never hearing the other side of the story. So yes, every step of the way, we're going to make sure that you hear the other side of the story. Now, my initial reaction is this. No one is complaining about Joe Biden issuing a pardon. We get that. What we don't like is that he lied about it every step of the way. And guys, he knew he was going to do this. They were coordinated about it. Just come out and be honest already. Let's continue.
So I'm not sure why people are clutching their pearls while the left is clutching their pearls. Because did y'all forget all the stuff that we said was going on, or that doesn't matter? Because it seems to me, and I had to write it down because I didn't think I would remember it. Yeah. I just want to say, Democrats, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You can't let people tell you you're not taking the moral ground when we take the moral ground all the time. We fight for migrant rights, women's rights, gay folks' rights, trans rights, and every time we do, suddenly we're being told, oh, you're on the woke agenda.
That is true, Whoopi. You are on the woke agenda because the woke agenda by default places people into different groups, different categories, and places labels on top of them and creates more division. In fact, you just proved my point. You just said we're all about migrant rights. Yeah, but what about veterans? What about women's rights? What about children and their rights? What about the baby inside of the womb? What about their rights? We never hear you talk about that. So yeah, you're called out for it. So again, she proves why they have no idea what they're talking about. And more people like myself and others need to continue to tell people what's really going on here. Now, as I stated earlier, it's not that Joe Biden pardoned his son. It's about the clear contradiction in his letter and messaging about it. He claims that the DOJ was weaponized against his son. But Scott Jennings on CNN had a phenomenal question to people who are starting to use that excuse. Watch this.
Nothing has changed. Can I ask a question? Do you all think that Merrick Garland should be fired because of this corruption at the DOJ?
Again, I don't think there's corruption at the DOJ. I think the concern is the future DOJ is going to be corrupted.
You think there's corruption there? You think this was a politicized witch hunt? But the Attorney General should be held accountable, no?
These charges were trumped up because his name is Hunter Biden.
But wouldn't you, if you were the president, would you believe the Attorney General?
Let's consult our legal expert.
So let's just do the math on this. First, if I asked you, is the DOJ weaponized against Trump? They will all say what? No, it is not. But then if I say, is Hunter Biden being selectively prosecuted by the DOJ, you will say yes. So tell me how you square all of that. But this is what's happening is the Democrats have to tie themselves into knots to justify this without being hypocritical, but also without acknowledging that the Attorney General, the Department of Justice, and the FBI, they have been politically weaponized against certain individuals. Now this leads to their next excuse, which is, well, even though Biden pardoned his son, it's the same thing that Trump did with his daughter's father-in-law. Watch.
Let me ask you this, Scott, because this is a fair point. Donald Trump pardoned Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, George Papadopoulos, Steve Bannon, Michael Flynn. Joe Biden's also not the first person to pardon a family member. Hunter Biden, Charles Kushner. Donald Trump did that one too. Roger Clinton was pardoned, President Clinton's half-brother. Emily Todd Helm, Abraham Lincoln's wife's half-sister, was pardoned. So are we saying we have a problem with all of those things?
How many of the Trump children that we were told are corrupt needed pardons? Zero.
Scott,
no one looked into them, Scott.
To your point,
getting
Scott,
$2 billion from the Saudis.
The Trump children did not face federal charges. To your point, I'm going to give you that. But the person on here, Charles Kushner, who was convicted for a crime.
Did he go to jail?
Yes, he was living in Alabama prison.
He served time?
But he was
Yes, he
pardoned.
was in prison.
If you're listening very carefully, Scott Jennings is pointing out something very insightful here. So Charles Kushner was convicted and did go to prison. Steve Bannon was convicted and he did go to prison. But Hunter Biden was convicted and he never went to prison. In fact, he's been waiting his sentencing, which was coming up in a few weeks here. So when you're trying to compare them, it's like trying to compare apples to oranges. It's not going to work. And for the record, Steve Bannon and Charles Kushner is not the son of Donald Trump. Hunter Biden is the son of Joe Biden. And also for the record, Joe Biden is the only president in history to ever pardon his son or his children for that matter. So there you go. Let's continue.
It strikes me that one of the arguments against
you
pardon,
didn't answer the
He's
question.
literally moved from a jail cell in Alabama to a...
They're not equivalent. They're not equivalent in any way, shape, or form.
Please.
But you're bringing up an issue, and you brought it up, so I want to address it. This idea that Hunter Biden is being selectively prosecuted. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the core criticisms of the Republicans, and Trump specifically, during the Biden years, is that the Department of Justice is engaging in selective prosecution and investigations of Republicans. And today, what I hear Democrats saying is, you know what, you're right. Joe Biden's DOJ does engage in selective prosecutions, which is exactly why we need people to come in and clean it out now. There seems to be bipartisan consensus.
But
selective prosecutions.
Does it open that door, Congressman?
What door? I'm sorry.
The door to say, well, there is corruption in the DOJ. Let's clean it out.
That's what he argues.
So key word here that Joe Biden used himself, selective prosecution, which brings me back to my initial point. Selective prosecution is just a fancy way of saying what? That the DOJ has been weaponized politically. But they're not going to admit that to you because then that would confirm everything that Trump has been saying over the past 8 years, right? And they definitely will never do that. So now we're moving on to the next excuse that, of course, this case was brought because his last name was Biden and that Trump is considering on setting up firing squads. And all these other unhinged reasons on why it was right for Joe Biden to pardon his son. You hear it for yourself. Watch.
If Eric Holder said it right, I think. He said if Hunter's name was Joe Smith, this case would probably have never even gone to trial, right? That it was always a political witch
Justice
hunt.
Department brought the
And
case?
it was always...
But Lee, wasn't, to Scott's point, I mean, wasn't it a lie? I mean, you can defend it, but wasn't it a lie that he was not going to pardon him?
No, I believe the circumstances have changed. I think that we now have a president coming into office who's talking about firing squads, who's talking about running people around the country and making sure that everyone who's his enemy is going to be punished. And Hunter Biden lied about his drug use on a government forum when he was buying a gun. And he failed to file and pay taxes when he was a drug addict. He paid back those taxes with interest. Donald Trump himself was indicted for 17 counts of criminal tax fraud, more than Hunter, and he's going to be the president of the United
11
States.
years.
So
You're missing.
Okay, so let's focus on something that she said. Circumstances have changed. Okay, that is just a slap in the face, all right? You truly believe we're that stupid? Circumstances have changed? Okay, this is the problem with individuals like her. People that are highly educated, They're on the Democratic Party. They think they know better. They use these fancy words, and they're just so out of touch with the average American. We're not stupid, okay? Circumstances have changed is a lazy way or a fancy way of saying, you know what? We lied the entire time. We know we were lying to you the entire time, but it's okay because we can do what we want to do. That's really what's going on here, people. And that's why the Senate Democrats like Chuck Schumer is having a tough time trying to answer what's going on here. Check this out.
Questions? Yes, Bolton.
Do you agree with some of your Democrat colleagues who say that President Biden's pardon of Hunter Biden was wrong or unwise, puts personal interest ahead of duty?
I got nothing for you on that.
Can I follow up on that? Are you concerned with the lack of transparency, lack of honesty around Biden's decision to pardon?
As I said, I got nothing for you on that. Nope.
I'm concerned that pardoning anyone on the way out of office, family members, sets a poor precedent.
Thank you. I've got nothing for you on that.
But the question is, they've talked about January 6th pardons. That this is a playbook for incoming President Trump. Isn't this a problem? Did he not establish a bad precedent for pardons?
I got nothing for you on that. Any other subjects?
And the crazy thing about how disconnected they are from the American people is average Americans just want people to tell them what it is. Don't lie to me like this. But I don't think they're willing to take that type of advice. And I don't think they would take this advice from Joe Manchin either. Watch.
As a father, I don't know of a father that wouldn't have done the same thing. What I would have done differently, and my recommendation as a counsel would have been, why don't you go ahead and pardon Donald Trump for all his charges and make it, it'd have gone down a lot more balanced, if you will. I'm just saying, wipe them out.
What do you think this does for his legacy?
I don't know. From that standpoint, it makes it difficult.
So he makes a phenomenal point. Great advice, actually. If you really wanted to heal the country, if you really wanted to cement your legacy, if you really wanted to change the temperature and really make sure that you are leaving the country in a better position than you found it, you would pardon everybody and wipe it clean. You would forge a new direction. But again, they're not going to do that. This is politics, right? And Joe Biden represents the establishment. Trump represents populists, meaning Trump is an outsider. He's not part of Washington. So as a result, someone like Joe Manchin, who is independent, could reason with certain ideas that he shared that you guys just watch on why it would make sense to pardon not just Hunter Biden, but Donald Trump himself as well. And by the way, he wasn't the only one to float this idea either. Check this exchange out between Chris Cuomo and Stephen A. Smith.
You know what else Biden should do? And I know people are going to get upset about this, but just think about it before you go crazy on me. Not you, sure. Everybody else. If I were he, I would pardon Trump.
You know something? Honestly,
I would say,
as crazy as this sounds, Chris, that's exactly what I would do. That's exactly what I would do. Enough's enough. You know what? You're the Democrats. You lost the election. You got your butt whipped. You couldn't prevent him from going back to the White House. More than a dozen cases have been dropped against him. The cases that have been ruled against him, he's going to appeal, and he'll probably get off from having to deal with all of that. It's time to move forward. You want to get at Trump? Sit back and judge what he does. Guess what? You got a midterm election in 2 years. Are you going to be ready if you're the Democratic Party? You should be. He's going to be the presidency for 4 years. You're going to be able to judge every single act that he does. March forward, move forward. Gerald Ford could have let Nixon suffer. To say he didn't let that happen. Why? Because it was for the good of the country. The whole hanging Chads issue in 2000 between George W. Bush and Al Gore. Gore could have dragged it on. He didn't. It was for the better of the country. And a lot of times these folks speak about this stuff, but they don't do what they say they're going to do and what they implore others to do, which is where the disgust elevates exponentially for Washington, D.C., because we know they're full of it most of the time. And today was the latest example of that.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Chris Cuomo and Stephen A. Smith. Definitely in a different universe that would make total sense. But in this divisive political landscape that we find ourselves in America, the Democratic Party would not stomach that very well. They already are barely hanging on because of this election loss. If Biden did something like that, it would be the end for them, right? It would be a good thing because I think the Democratic Party needs to be blown up and they need to start over. And that's what Trump did to the Republican Party. He blew it up. They've started over, and they're being led by a populist candidate. The Democratic Party don't have a populist candidate right now. That's why they're going to continue to lose elections. A populist candidate relates to the average American working class voter. That's what's happening. And we have to pay attention to that. So this Hunter Biden pardon has a lot of Democrats definitely looking in the mirror and trying to figure out what's really going on. And one of those individuals, NBC Chuck Todd, has some choice words about Biden and the entire presidency.
I follow the Hunter Biden trial very closely. Mm-hmm. I read every transcript, all the testimony, because that's what all that was made public. And there is, you want to get angry, just as somebody in just all these mixed emotions. You read the Hallie Biden transcript, and that's Bo's widow.
Yes.
And essentially he turned her into a crack addict. And this was all happening in 2017, 2018. And Joe Biden were so concerned about their family that they decided to run for president.
Yep.
So when you talk about the word selfish, it's almost like the word doesn't, their decision to run for president put the entire Democratic Party and the United States of America in the position that it's in now.
Now, think about what he just said. The position that we're in now, we have a president who is a part of the biggest scandal that has never been exposed, and that is his mental acuity. The media has refused to report on how diminished mentally Joe Biden really is. Now, don't take my word for it. See it for yourself. This is Joe Biden visiting the president of Angola in Africa. Watch. Now, I want you guys to think for a second, if that was your father or your grandfather, how would you feel? You know, this is elder abuse all over again. The reality here is that the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, the media, they don't really have a leg to stand on, because this is by far the biggest scandal since Watergate, for sure. I mean, think about it for a second. The president of the United States is mentally diminished, and we're surprised that he pardoned his son? Of course not. Now, the pardoning of his son is going everywhere he goes. So, of course, he was interrupted while meeting with the president of Angola. Let's watch that.
Mr. President, do you think Trump will continue your efforts here? Mr. President, why did you pardon your son?
Moving just this way, please. Just this way. We're departing this way. Thank you so much. This way, please.
Okay, so I'm not shocked that they're going to try to continue to ask him that same question over and over and over again. But the better question is, what are you doing meeting with the president of Angola? Oh, yeah, that's right. Because Joe Biden, once again, is sending more money overseas.
You know, that's the right thing for the wealthiest nation in the world to do. And today, I'm announcing over $1 billion in new humanitarian support for Africans displaced from homes by historic droughts and food insecurity. We know African leaders and citizens are seeking more than just aid. You seek investment. So the United States is expanding our relationship all across Africa, from assistance to aid, to investment to trade, moving from patrons to partners, to help bridge the infrastructure gap. I was told, by the way, when I got elected, I could never get an infrastructure bill passed.
Yeah, so I don't think the issue is him actually sending money to African nations, which is a very admirable thing. Now, but what about money for the hurricane survivors in North Carolina, Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee? What about those individuals? Where has the press conference been about that? It's as if that never happened. Right? It's so interesting how it takes a catastrophic event for political leaders to come out and say something. And after that catastrophic event has passed, they act like it never happened again. That is why they are so out of touch with the average American who's working class. They want to be acknowledged. They're not really looking for handouts. They just want to know, hey, you guys do matter. And that brings us to the next story, where the New York City Mayor Eric Adams is acknowledging the problems that he has in his city, particularly due to illegal migration. And he's listening to the residents. Here he is saying that he's willing to work with Trump and the new border czar.
Those who are here committing crimes, robberies, shooting at police officers, raping innocent people, have been a harm to our country. I want to sit down and hear the plan on how we're going to address them. Those are the people I am talking about, and I would love to sit down with the border czar and hear his thoughts on how we're going to address those who are harming our citizens.
You're open to that?
Open to
hearing what their plan is to deport some of these folks, and you think the city, in some circumstances, should cooperate with ICE.
Let me. You know what's interesting? And I was talking to the team the other day. I want you to all go back and Google Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Google what they said about those who commit crimes in our city and what they said in our country. They said those who commit crimes need to get out right away. That was their position. So this is not a new position, because in the state of in the era of cancel culture, no one is afraid to be honest about the truth. Well, cancel me, because I'm going to protect the people of this city. And if you come into this country, in this city, and think you're going to harm innocent New Yorkers and innocent migrants and asylum seekers, this is not the mayor you want to be in the city under.
Yeah, so clearly the mayor is getting much more confident with pushing back on the invasion, right, and the mass migration of illegal aliens. And what's interesting, he also brought up the point that this is nothing new. Hillary Clinton campaigned on the idea of mass deportation. Bill Clinton did it. Barack Obama did it. Now, just for some good old-fashioned entertainment, let's watch Hillary Clinton say exactly what Mayor Eric Adams just said.
So I think we got to have tough conditions. Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked. They're gone. If they've been working and are law-abiding, we should say, here are the conditions for you staying. You have to pay a stiff fine because you came here illegally. You have to pay back taxes, and you have to try to learn English, and you have to wait in line.
Now, when I hear that clip, it always makes me go back to this question. What happened to the Democratic Party? Because they were the party who believed in border security, mass deportation. Barack Obama on record for deporting more illegal migrants than any president in history. So what happened? Well, what happened was the party got hijacked by the progressive wing of their party. And the progressives don't believe in border security. They believe in open borders. They believe in having compassion and focus on migrants over veterans and the actual citizens of America. That's their whole aim about it. He did mention that he's willing to work with the new border czar, Tom Homan, and Tom Homan did respond. So let's hear what he had to say.
The Democratic mayor in New York, Eric Adams, a former cop, is ready to work with you.
I hope so, because I've just been notified he wants to sit down and meet with me. I'm willing to meet with him. I'm willing to meet with anybody to help make their community safer. Because again, prioritization out of the gate is public safety threats. Work with us on that. It makes your community safer. It keeps my officers safe. It keeps the community safe. Let's work together and get this done.
When's that meeting happen?
I haven't responded yet, but I'll respond this week.
And that's what the American people want. They want our leaders to work together and get results and stop playing around. We're done with the divisive politics. We're done with the song and dance in the media. You say one thing, but then you do another. And they're definitely done with the violent rhetoric of trying to tell everybody that, Kash Patel, he's dangerous. Tom Homan, he's dangerous. Trump is dangerous. They're not listening to that anymore. And to give an example of why they're not listening to that anymore, let's take this same example of illegal migration that has decimated a city, but the mayor has doubled down on it. That is Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago. So Eric Adams, he did the right thing. He knows this is a problem, but Brandon Johnson is still stuck in denial. He's unwilling to acknowledge how big of a problem this is. So as a result, every city council meeting that's taken place, this is what happens.
Brandon Johnson, the good news is we got 48 days before Trump take that oath. In January, ICE going to come in and get rid of the illegal immigrants. Here's the thing. In order for us to get these taxes, we got to get rid of these illegals. So this was going to happen to you. You got Kash Patel and Pam Bundy that you're going to have to deal with sooner than later. Then it's going to be an audit. Next, it's going to be an investigation. Then it's going to be an indictment.
Well, that's how you do it. Oh, I like that. Oh, my God. I like that. That's bad.
Conviction. That's what's going to happen to you.
Okay, so we know that Chicago is a city of scandals. We also know that the mayor, Brandon Johnson, has the lowest approval rating of any mayor of Chicago in quite some time. But that's not just the only scandal that's happening on the Democratic Party's watch. The other one is what happened with the Kamala Harris campaign, $2.5 billion down the drain. And now Democrats are asking questions. They want answers. Lindy Lee is continuing to go on the news and expose how many people got rich off this campaign. Check this out.
And no one answered any questions about why millions of dollars were spent on star-studded concerts, celebrities. $2.5 million went to Oprah's production company. Oprah very well could have made an in-kind contribution and covered the production costs and her employee's salary herself, but she decided to take payment from the campaign instead. And also, we learned recently that $500,000 was given to Al Sharpton just shortly before he interviewed Kamala Harris. So there's a lot of conflict of interest here, and we need a careful accounting and probably more granular than the FEC report would offer. So somebody needs to carefully explain why they decided to, for example, spend $900,000 on the sphere. Because if we don't do that, how are voters and donors ever going to trust the Democratic Party again?
So just think about the scandals that are taking place right now. Okay, you've got Joe Biden's mental acuity, right? You've got the Act Blue scandal with all of the amount of donations that went into the DNC that are questionable. Then you got people who are becoming overnight millionaires off the back of the campaign. Then you've got people like Mayor Brandon Johnson, who has been obviously funneling the money in a certain way to fund illegal migrants and the shelters. And then you have celebrities who were paid to do X, Y, or Z for the campaign. And then you got Joe Biden pardoning his son and lying the entire time about it. I mean, they spent so much time getting everyone to focus on Trump and the scandals that he has going on. But what about all of this? But like I stated, they don't want you to focus on that. In fact, they want you to focus on the main reason they believe that Kamala Harris lost this election, and it's due to racism and misogyny. And here it is.
So, yes, I take the reelection of Donald Trump quite personally because of the person themselves, but also as a Black woman. And that is because I think for a lot of Black women, we can relate to Kamala Harris just in the sense of some of us have been in that position before where we felt qualified, if not overqualified in many respects. And for a lot of Black women, even though we should not internalize it this way, it felt like a particular rejection of some of the things that we've been fighting for, or it felt like a particular rejection of sort of our place and how we're seen in this society. And I don't think it's by any accident that both of Trump's presidential victories have been against women.
That was race hustler Jemele Hill, okay? Again, I show these clips not because I support them. I show them because I love to debunk them and tell the other side of the story. There are a lot of people who think just like Jemele Hill. These are professors, politicians, leaders in our communities. They do think like her. The other side of the story is this. It's not about the color of your skin. Merit, competency is a real thing. This is why if they hold on to this mindset, they're going to continue to lose, because that's a negative victimization type of mindset. And the average American working class voter is not going to resonate with that. Now I want to hear from you guys, and I just have a question that I truly want you guys to answer, because this is the biggest one with all of these debates about the pardon. Did Joe Biden lie about pardoning his son? You guys know my answer. Of course he did. And he did it. All right. He knew he was going to pardon him the entire time. OK, this is what the debate is centered around at this point. And of course, they have these additional excuses like, well, because Trump is going to be the president, Joe Biden had no choice. OK, got it. All right. Yeah. But let's hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. Now, because the world was caught off guard with Joe Biden pardoning his son, Hunter, the whole Kash Patel being nominated for FBI director has been kind of flying under the radar. But the meltdowns are continuing to take place, and particularly this one that I talked about, Morning Joe, who really loses their mind over this nomination. And they go into using the same tactic that they used against Trump, using violent rhetoric to explain why this individual is so dangerous. So we do go in and debunk that as well. And if you want to check out that video, all you have to do is click on it because it's coming up right now.